Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Andrea Silva, soy socia activa y vicepresidenta de JoyaBrava, la Asociación de Joyería Contemporánea Chilena. Le damos la bienvenida a esta primera jornada del ciclo de diálogos en línea con la contingencia en diálogo con el mundo. Esta actividad estamos realizándola en el marco de la celebración de los 10 años desde la fundación de nuestra asociación. Este proyecto es financiado por el Ministerio de las Artes, el Patrimonio y la Cultura del Gobierno de Chile, Fondar de Asignación Regional, Región Metropolitana de la Convocatoria 2020, y que cuenta con el apoyo del Centro Cultural Gabriela Mistral. Les recordamos que este ciclo es abierto y gratuito, previa inscripción en el link Una Década Brava de nuestro sitio web joyabrava.cl. Desde ahí podrán acceder a nuestro catálogo virtual, retrospectiva de una década, y para ver y disfrutar del evento inaugural que sucedió ayer, pueden hacerlo en el canal GAM de YouTube del Centro Cultural Gabriela Mistral. El video documental estrenado Una Década Brava, experiencia inmersiva de realidad virtual, va a estar disponible en los próximos días y lo vamos a anunciar por las redes sociales. El día de hoy se realizará el diálogo Crear en tiempos de pandemia, con los invitados Kevin Murray, Snem Yildirim y Piersinaru, conducido por Liliana Ojeda, socia fundadora de JoyaBrava y ex vicepresidenta de la asociación. Kevin Murray es australiano, escritor y curador independiente, cofundador y editor de Garland Magazine, revista online. Entre los años 2000 y 2007 fue director de Craft Victoria, donde desarrolló el Scarf Festival y el South Project, un programa de intercambio de 4 años que involucra a Melbourne, Wellington, Santiago y Johannesburgo. Ha curado muchas exposiciones, entre las que se incluyen Signos de Cambio, Joyería diseñada para un mundo mejor, El mundo de las pequeñas cosas, Simetría, la artesanía se encuentra con oficios y profesiones afines. Sus libros incluyen Craft Unbound, Make the Common Precious, y con Damien Skinner, Place and Adornment, A History of Contemporary Jewelry en Australia. Actualmente es vicepresidente senior de la región Asia-Pacífico del World Craft Council. Snem Yildirim es de Turquía, es graduada del Departamento de Arquitectura de la Universidad de Gazi en el 2011. Comenzó a estudiar el programa de maestría en diseño arquitectónico en la Universidad Bilgi de Estambul. Continuó el programa de diseño de calzado y accesorios en cuero en la Academia de Moda de Estambul en asociación con la Universidad de las Artes de Londres. En el 2016 fundó su estudio de diseño y joyería contemporánea Isuwa con su hermana. Actualmente trabaja en su estudio y enseña arquitectura en la Universidad de Gazi. El 2017 ha sido ganadora de los premios Enjoyat Barcelona. El 2018 ha sido galardonada con el premio de la Semana de la Joyería de Atenas. Su trabajo ha recorrido los principales circuitos de la joyería de arte en Europa, Estados Unidos y Asia. Sus obras expresan la riqueza de los contrastes entre Oriente y Occidente, lo global y lo local, lo tradicional y lo moderno, lo orgánico y lo geométrico. Piersinaru es rumano, licenciado en Artes Visuales de la Universidad de las Artes de Cluj Napoca y MBA ejecutivo enfocado en gestión de imágenes organizacionales del SNCPA de Bucarest. Fotógrafo y artista visual, gestor cultural independiente que inició la plataforma internacional Autor, que incluye eventos como Feria de Joyería Contemporánea Autor, Feria de Cuero Contemporáneo Materia y Ferregalos de Diseñadores Noel. También es el editor de Autor Magazine, una publicación internacional impresa dedicada exclusivamente a la joyería contemporánea. Ha realizado exposiciones individuales y colectivas en Rumania y Suiza y ha recibido becas para artistas jóvenes del gobierno de Francia y España. Su visión artística abarca desde la fotografía y el videoarte hasta las instalaciones, dibujos y objetos. Con todas estas herramientas conjuga la identidad y la biografía del ser humano en sus estados de transición en el tiempo y los lugares. Liliana Ojeda, nuestra conductora, es chilena, licenciada en Artes Mención Escultura de la Universidad Católica y máster en Joyería de la University of Central England, en Birmingham, Inglaterra. Cofundadora y vicepresidenta de JoyaBrava entre el año 2010 y 2014. Actualmente es docente en la Escuela de Joyería Pamela de la Fuente y ha expuesto su obra en ferias y centros culturales de Chile, Argentina, España, Inglaterra, Alemania y Polonia. Sello de Excelencia en la Artesanía 2014 por el Gobierno de Chile, primera mención honrosa en Puentes, la primera Bienal de Joyería Contemporánea Latinoamericana de Buenos Aires, seleccionada por la AFAD para el premio Enjoyat Barcelona 2016, Fondar Nacional 2018 para su proyecto Historias de Piel, seleccionada en Feria de Arte y Diseño Contemporáneo Collect 2001, Londres. Les recuerdo nuevamente que para realizar sus preguntas utilicen el botón de preguntas y respuestas que está al lado del chat, ojalá no el del chat, o sea, no el del chat en realidad, solo en preguntas y respuestas. Los dejo entonces con Liliana Ojeda para dar paso al diálogo de hoy. Nos vemos pronto y muchas gracias por participar.
Gracias, repito entonces, Andrea, por tu linda presentación y bienvenidos a nuestros invitados que han tenido que esperar un rato y que espero me puedan entender todo lo que estoy hablando porque se supone que están escuchando una traducción simultánea al inglés. ¿Me están escuchando? ¿Sí? Ok. Entonces, les damos nuevamente la bienvenida a Dan, Snem y Kevin a este especial conversatorio que se llama Creatividad en tiempos de pandemia. Vamos a tener una invitación con este tema y tal vez nos vamos a ir a otros muchos temas. ¿Y por qué los invitamos a ellos? Para nosotros estos tres invitados representan una fuerza alternativa que reúne a culturas diversas. Con lo que ellos hacen, con su trabajo, ellos aunan a personas muy diferentes, por eso nos interesan como invitados y a pesar de las diferencias culturales sentimos que compartimos muchos valores similares. Ellos están localizados en lugares muy diversos, a los extremos de Europa y en Oceanía, lo cual a nosotros como chilenos nos parece muy interesante y novedoso. Nos interesa su mirada porque es una mirada que va mucho más allá de los centros de Europa, que es donde nosotros estamos acostumbrados a mirar. Me gustaría entonces partir, siempre hablar en orden Kevin, Snem y después Dan. Entonces, que partiéramos haciendo una pequeña presentación, que cada uno se presente con sus palabras y que diga quién es y qué hace, en muy conciso y cortito. Entonces los invito a presentarse, que primero se presente Kevin, si es que me está escuchando, que no sé por qué no lo veo, después se puede presentar Snem y después se presenta Dan. ¿Ok?
Thank you very much, Liliana. It's wonderful to see you again. We saw each other this week with the launch of Garland, the latest issue, which is focusing on South America. So it's wonderful timing and has a beautiful article by you on JoyaBrava. Very proud. And it was lovely to be there at the beginning of JoyaBrava and to witness the wonderful things that it has achieved, and also to be with Dan and Snem as well. And it's terrific that you've using your position in Chile to provide a way of opening up the global jewelry scene. I think that's wonderful. Anyway, so I'm a curator, writer, have exhibitions. JoyaBrava was one of them that was traveling through South America a number of years ago. And I also edit Garland magazine, which is a 5-year journey across the wider world to understand the value of what we make. And this journey comes to an end and a conclusion in South America right now. So it is good timing. But I like to call myself a knowledge worker for crafts. And I think this comes close to the Spanish verb of gestionar, that partly what someone like me does is to try and connect things together, to look at threads, whether it's through exhibitions or editorial or articles, but just simply to be like a bee, cross-pollinating what's happening. And I'm in Melbourne, Naarm, which the traditional owners are the people of the Wurundjeri Nation.
Gracias, Kevin. Tenemos muchas conexiones contigo, aquí en Chile. ¿Quieres contarnos ahora, Snem, acerca de ti? Ahí.
Hi, Liliana again. And first, I want to thank you, the team of JoyaBrava and Liliana and Yael, for inviting me for such an amazing event. I'm really happy to part of JoyaBrava at its 10th year, and so happy to be together with Dan and Kevin and Liliana in this dialogue. Thank you once again. I'm Sinem. I'm from Turkey. If you want, I can show some images where I live and what I'm doing. If you want, I don't know.
Yeah, let's try if you can, si podemos compartir la pantalla, a ver si está destrabada para que puedas compartir algunas imágenes del lugar donde tú vives, porque no todos hemos tenido la suerte de ir hacia allá, aunque tenemos muchas ganas de visitar.
I want to show you because maybe some of you don't know Turkey and Istanbul. So I want to start by showing my city to you, and I want to show why I select to live in here because its impact belongs to jewelry. So I'm Sina. As Andrea told that I am a graduate from architecture and working about for 4 or 5 years at jewelry field, contemporary jewelry field. And I am living in Istanbul. I'm living in Istanbul. I want to show you because as it's related to my pandemic process and jewelry, this blue dot is where I live. I live in Balat. It's an old Greek, Armenian and Jewish neighborhood, and mostly constructed before 1930s. These are some photos from where I live, from Istanbul. You're always welcome. If you want to one day come to visit me, you're always welcome. And I select to live in this point because it's very close, the pink dots that you see from the map, and it's very close because it's very close the craft ateliers in Istanbul. And for 100 years in Istanbul, they are creating jewelry in these pink dots. So I'm living in Istanbul in this area. This is Grand Bazaar. We called it the center of jewelry. Before pandemic, every day I was walking to this area. And one more photo from the Grand Bazaar. These are some other ateliers from Istanbul.
Hermoso.
And this is my home. So I think that's enough for the moment.
Bueno, hermoso donde vives. Se parece un poco a nuestro Valparaíso, que es una ciudad que está aquí muy cerca de Santiago, hacia la costa, y que tiene mucha arquitectura pintada con colores y hacia arriba, ¿no? Como construido un poco hacia arriba, y con hartos cerros, pero no sé si este lugar tiene tantos cerros como tenemos en Valparaíso, pero me recordó mucho a esa ciudad que tenemos nosotros. Continuamos con Dan entonces, que nos cuenta un poco sobre él y qué es lo que él hace. Dan, ¿puedes dejar de compartir la pantalla, Snem?
Hola. ¿Qué tal? I don't speak Spanish, sorry. Dear Liliana, thank you again for this wonderful invitation. I'm really grateful to be along Snem and Kevin and the other guests here. So, as Andrea said, I'm based in Bucharest, in Romania, which is a country in Southeast Europe. I don't know if you have in mind the geography right now, but it's one of the countries that until 30 years ago was under the communist regime, which means a lot. So, you know about myself that I'm a visual artist, and I started 11 years ago in 2009 which slowly became a platform, and a platform involves other elements like the printed magazine we have, a sum of awards that we offer and we receive in our fair, and a digital platform to promote and sustain contemporary jewelry. I also have a small presentation because I think it's more suitable thing to look at because we are visual persons, right? Let me share it. Can you see it? Okay, so Romania, where is this little red dot? And we made it this map because Autor Fair, it's an international event. It's 80% international from all over the world, from the 5 continents at least. And we are really happy with that because, you know, Romania is not a powerful or rich country. So we managed to get the attention of the people all over the world. And I think this is great. These are some visuals that we used to have for Autor Fair, just to have an idea, Feria, as you said, in Spanish. What I want to say is that until 2016, we had 2 editions per year, one in spring, one in autumn. And like 6 years ago, we had JoyaBrava, one of the first international participation that we had a long time ago. And we felt like really honored and really glad to have somebody from so far away, because from Chile to Romania, it's a long way. And I think it was back in 2014. Do you remember, Liliana? When
yeah, I think it was, creo que era en ese año, en el 2014, sí. ¿Alguien que nos esté escuchando nos puede corroborar?
Yeah.
¿Alguien de mis compañeras, por favor, hagan memoria? Pero creo que fue en 2014, sí, si no me equivoco. Sí. Creo que fue Caco Honorato encargado de llevar todas las piezas y exponerlas allá.
Yes,
Rumania.
indeed. Yeah, and he brought us the catalogs and prints, and he was a very vivid person, I remember. And I hope he still is, right?
Sí, todavía es una persona muy alegre y entusiasta, pero ya no forma parte de JoyaBrava.
Okay.
Pero sigue siendo un gran colega.
Anyway, so you have some... Great. Here you have some images from the fair, you know, I mean, Autor is a fair where you can, it's not an exhibition, it's not a festival. It's a place where you can go and share your jewelry, you can share your collections, and as well you can sell it to the public, you know. And I think this is something important. So there is a mix because you can show it and you can help people to understand and educate the people, and also they can be happy buying it and wearing it in the end, you know. So the mission is complete. More images from the fair. As I told you, we started to give awards to encourage emerging artists, and not only emerging artists, to go to other events. We have partnership with Athens Jewelry Week, with Hoya Barcelona, with London, with the Central San Martin School of Art, and many others. And when we have the fair in spring usually, but we didn't have it this year, we have conferences, we have parties. Anyway, we try to make it a complete experience, so you can really worth it, you know. So that's it about Autor. If you want to find us, on internet, on Instagram, on Facebook, and so on. So I think it's enough. You know about Autor magazine because Andrea told you before. So we started 7 years ago to print the magazine. And also this year we didn't make it. So hopefully we get back next year. You have the connection, Liliana.
Sí, ok. Gracias, Dan. Interesante todo lo que hacen, todos los esfuerzos, por ejemplo, por imprimir una revista. Eso yo creo que casi nadie se hace poco. Entonces es rico poder tener acceso a una revista física, aunque este año no sea, ¡uf! ¿Cuántas? Aunque este año no se haya podido realizar, estamos como esperando la nueva versión de la revista que correspondía a este o al próximo año. Y me gustaría continuar con nuestra conversación. Me dan muchas ganas de interrumpirlos, pero creo que sería complejo para los traductores, tal vez. Así que no lo voy a hacer, pero me gustaría como volver al tema que nos convoca, que al principio parece un poco fome estar hablando de cosas que no nos gustan. ¿Quién quiere hablar de pandemia hoy en día, no? Si estamos en medio de ella, estamos como soportándola y no sabemos cuánto tiempo más vamos a tener que hacerlo. Ya llevamos como un año viviendo esta situación tan particular que nos une a todos en el mundo, y eso tal vez es la parte interesante. Y por supuesto que esto tiene que influenciar todas las esferas de nuestra vida, incluso la parte de la creatividad. Entonces me gustaría comenzar a preguntarles cómo lo han vivido, qué cosas nuevas han surgido con esta nueva situación, a lo mejor han comenzado un trabajo diferente o tienen una perspectiva diferente de su quehacer ahora que estamos en medio de esta crisis sanitaria, que también yo siento que es parte de una crisis social, ecológica, etcétera, etcétera. Es una crisis más, como una respuesta a todas las otras crisis que vive la humanidad. Pero entonces, mi primera pregunta, que sería para ustedes tres, que me las pueden responder en el orden que habíamos definido, es ¿qué hacías tú entonces, qué estabas haciendo antes de que comenzara la pandemia y en qué estás ahora, ahora que ya llevamos un año en pandemia, prácticamente un año o más? Esa sería como la primera pregunta que me gustaría hacerles, y una subpregunta, ¿qué direcciones has tomado o ha tomado tu trabajo con este contexto tan complejo en el que estamos ahora? Y si quieren me muestran imágenes también, como ustedes deseen. Vamos a partir entonces con Kevin.
Yes, well, the big change, of course, has been travel. Last year, I had enormous travel, sometimes 3 international trips a month. So I became, in a sense, quite disoriented. So in a way, it's been good to be grounded for a year, but I do miss regular visits to countries like Chile. And so one way I found to cope was to, when I have my morning coffee, each different day of the week, I choose a cup from the country that I like to think about. So today it's from Chile. And in that way, at least the week becomes like a journey. So building on the capital of memories. But for me, one of the major elements, and if I can share my screen, I can talk to you about the hand medal project, which I was fortunate to be a hand keeper for. Now, this is something established by jewelers from the United States and Argentina, Jimena Rios in Argentina. And it's a project where jewelers make these hand-carved medals that go on to frontline health workers. And I think, although jewelry in the contemporary sense has been largely about artistic individual products, I think there's always a sense there that there is a public face to jewelry as a symbolic object, and the fact that even though the jeweler's bench seems a long way from the action when it comes to a pandemic, the degree to which jewelry honors what we do, gives value to what we do, is very powerful. And it was wonderful to see all of these objects coming in from across Australia to be able to give to people in hospitals, in aged care, and so on. And it was a beautiful, beautiful link to establish. And this is, I think, part of the generosity of craft generally. Most makers often are very generous in their promotion of social causes. And I think in this case, it was particularly important for jewelry, and that continues, obviously, as the infections are still here. But one other element that I thought was quite strong and emerged during this year is what we might call the digital campfire. Thanks to media like Zoom, that people in their loneliness, in their isolation, could come together and share ideas. So a number of different forums emerged, often very philosophical, in the way in which when we sit around a fire at night, we talk about big things often. So as part of the process with Garland of thinking about, after 5 years, what are the kind of key ideas, we started a project called Reinventing the Wheel, with a sense that unlike many other disciplines, say in the social sciences like sociology, there isn't a repository of knowledge, of learning within a field like contemporary jewelry, where we can look at the key ideas and build a knowledge base. So with a number of other people, our aim was to start thinking about what a knowledge house of craft might be. And this is something, as you're doing now, Liliana, with this series, bringing us together from different countries, it's also about broadening the voices associated with the history of craft. So in India, obviously, where it has a very strong relationship to the struggle against colonialism, to revisit that story. And then we had one which looked at smell, and particularly from a Islamic or Arab perspective. Again, this is a sense that's not often associated with art, or particularly with craft. But in the case of cultures like the Arabic, it's a sense which is almost more important than the visual, because it's tied to ritual. It's about when people come together and share a moment. And we had some interesting jewelry elements to that, because there is also in the Islamic world jewelry which contains spices. So it's something that you can smell as you're wearing it, and others can as well. And I think one of the key issues that came up around this was how in the West, smell is mostly commodified. It's a perfume, it's a brand, which we see when we used to walk through airports, of course. It was like a temple of perfumes. Whereas in the Middle East, more traditionally, certainly, it's tied much more closely to nature. It's about harvesting the frankincense or the various other aromas and scents. So this opened up a new way of thinking that was very important. And this week we had one from Moana Oceania, which is the space between Australia and Chile at the moment, the Great Pacific Ocean. And these people have been doing a series of talks during lockdown called Talk Story, where people from different islands in the Pacific come together to share their key stories. And that's been a wonderful opportunity to actually share the feeling, the warmth of Pacific cultures, which is something associated, of course, with the garland, why we gave it that name, that it relates to the lei that people wear, but also the adornment that, say, Hindus offer in temples, and perhaps it has the smell as well. So I think there are two things I suppose to say about that. One is that in isolation, in lockdown, it gave us something to share across the world. So it was an interesting coming together, even though we were apart, which we may never experience again. So it seemed very precious. But the other thing is it's now created a complex world where we're separated not by space, not by distance, but by time, because it's very good that you have, and I know it's very difficult to try and cover different time zones in what you're doing. So thank you for that, for that it's not 3 o'clock in the morning for me, but so many events now that in Australia we hear about in the middle of the night. So we feel a lot more excluded from things than we used to be. So it's an interesting new world that's emerged from that. So I have a few more other slides to show, but I think I might leave them for a little later in our discussion and just leave it there. Thank you.
Gracias, gracias Kevin, muy interesante todo lo que dijiste. Lo siento, nunca fue la mejor hora, pero claro, él agradece que no le tocó conectarse a las 3 de la mañana, al menos pudo dormir un rato y para eso a las 7 de la mañana, 7:30 pasada, 8, y para los otros chicos ya es la noche y la pobre Snem va a terminar como a la 1 de la mañana conversando con nosotros, pero eso también demuestra que este es un espacio que les interesa para estar y para compartir. Así que ahora le doy el tiempo a Snem para que nos cuente un poco en qué estaba y en qué está ahora.
Okay. I will continue from the photos. Before pandemic, I was usually at Feria that I showed you from the old photos. And I was working for upcoming exhibitions, events, and orders at my home that is seen from the photo. I was always working for upcoming exhibitions. And Nuda Vita exhibition that is created by Ilaria Ruggiero for Munich Jewelry Week. Declaration of Sentiments exhibition organized by our collective, Co-Plus Lab, for Munich Jewelry Week, was some of upcoming exhibitions. Also with my sister, we were also creating some new pieces for the trunk shows at San Francisco MoMA and New York Now and Getty Museum. I was working with no stop. I want to show you the works that I was working during the pandemic. These are the series that I was working before pandemic. Tabula Rasa is the series that I was working on for the exhibition of Nuda Vita. I explored the concept of nudity through the Locke's Tabula Rasa definition. At birth, our mind is blank, without any rules and without being conditioned. So I question how we feel this blank and what we show to the world of image. What is waiting for us in this new image world, in other words, in this new show business. And the second story is that you see, Neufeld is not new anymore. The story is that I was working, and still I am working on it, was for the exhibition of Declaration of Sentiments. Is about gender roles that is imposed by the system. Maybe because of I'm an architect, I select the book of architecture standards called Neufeld. In this book, the gender roles are drawn strictly. I want to show you image from this book. You see the kitchen, and the kitchen standards are working woman in the kitchen. So I get the mix of two standards and manipulate them as a new image of standards to criticize and revolt against the imposed gender roles and gender inequality. Near of these stories, I was also working for my older stories, Daily Obedience Routines and Mein Liebe Diktator. Daily obedience routines, in these stories, I was questioning how the education system transformed us into individuals who obeyed the authority. And I repeat the moment that I remember from my school years, and I use the stories, my photos and these moments. And in Mein Liebe Diktator, in all of my series, I mostly work with my self-portrait and my image, and I multiply them in a disturbing form to criticize authority and self-obedient pressure and etc. I was working on the stories before pandemic, and one day everything has stopped. Everything has stopped, and for me everything was perfect, and all the events and all the exhibitions was postponed, and I was very frustrated at the beginning. And what happened? I was really very frustrated, and I feel like that it's a kind of big empty hole. Everything was uncertain. But before this pandemic, everything was nearly perfect for me. But I realized that everything stopped for everyone in everywhere. I was frustrated at the beginning, as I said, but then, apart from all these bad and sad changes and news, I like the feeling to stop and love the quiet and calm atmosphere. Because in normal life, even I think I am doing something with my free will, we are not free indeed. And we have to work and work and work because of the system. We live in a capitalist system, and the system consumes everything so quickly. Even we don't wish to be part of this system, we can't avoid from it. It's the truth. When we decide to stop or to have a break, the system fills in your place with others. And as I said, apart from all the set changes, I realized that this process could be very valuable on the other side. And I tried to transform this process to a valuable process of mine, because this is a kind of struggle and fight way for me. And first weeks, I tried to do nothing. And I really want to feel, what is it? Doing nothing. I want to experience this real do nothing situation. Then, as you guess, I couldn't continue without doing nothing. And I had a rain backyard that I have never worked on it before. So I decided to clean it. Clean the garden and even the soil. Then, as seen from the photos, I started to plant vegetables. During all summer, I never bought vegetables from greengrocers because I had a lot of in my garden. And I carry my computer, books to this garden and start to work in this garden. I start to think about my works before pandemic. And I ask how I could revise them, because my pieces, I was always in dialogue with my pieces with others. And Joyera is the way for me to expression. So I want to continue this communication process again through my work, but I feel that I had to find new ways. And my pieces were as if a never-ending repeat of a movie scene. I use general lenticular printing. I want to show the video of my pieces in real. This is the photos, but I want to show how is in real life. And do you see the video now? Okay. I use a kind of printing and I use my image. And I always express myself, as I told, from my jewelry. And I try to find the new way for the new world. And then there's another video that I will show. I'm sorry, I will make you wait a little bit. I try to recreate all my pieces that I use lenticular printing, but now my approach was the video. So I create some videos that are totally same with my jewelry piece, because I want to express myself and connect with people, communicate with people from my jewelry. And I started thinking about these video projects during the pandemic, and I create a lot of videos that is recreation of my jewelry. And if we have time, I will show other videos and other pieces that's created as same. Liliana, do we have time? Do you want one more video?
Sí, me gustaría ver otro video si tienes, porque todavía tenemos tiempo, estamos ok con los tiempos.
Okay. This was a piece that I created for the exhibition of Nuda Vita. And this is the video art that I create from my work. I want to show one more video, one more photo and video. This was again a work created from lenticular printing. Again, there was 2 images of mine, and I want to show the video of it. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Ahí.
Okay, now it's it's okay. These are already little pieces from my videos, and like that again. And this is what I do during pandemic. And that's all.
Gracias.
And I just ask, is that on Insta? Is this working with Instagram, Snem? Is this where you put your videos?
No, not only for Instagrams. In Istanbul, there are some galleries, and I am talking with 2 art galleries. And I am on the way to decide to work with one of them.
¿Es solo con los videos o también las piezas físicas?
They were interested in the videos, but I offered them to show also the lenticular printings. So now we are talking about to exhibit both the lenticular printings and the videos. But if I show lenticular printings, I show another video, not the same pieces, both in lenticular printing and the video.
Muy interesante el trabajo, fuerte. Yo creo que el trabajo de Snem llega directo, es como súper directo, y me llama la atención su técnica, porque acá en Chile no somos muy industrializados, y la técnica de la impresión lenticular, que es una técnica que igual aquí la conocemos porque llegan muchos como separa libros o se hacen muchos objetos con eso que vienen de China, de lugares así, pero no creo que nadie aquí lo utilice para hacer joyería. Entonces es interesante cómo tú incorporas técnicas que eran para otra cosa y las incorporas en tu trabajo de joyería. Y también tú usas aluminio anodizado, que son técnicas que para nosotros son muy novedosas. No sé si para ti, donde tú vives, son así de novedosas como lo es para nosotros, y cómo se te ocurrió trabajar con esas técnicas, porque es como bien característico en tu trabajo, como esa cosa bien industrial, que tú necesitas probablemente de otra empresa que te realice, por ejemplo, la impresión lenticular, no la haces tú misma, ¿o sí?
When I was a child, I remember some lenticular postcards. Maybe you remember them too. And
Sí.
I always, before the jewelry, I tried, we have a contemporary art collective that we produce some public arts. And then when I started contemporary jewelry, I said to myself that contemporary jewelry for me is contemporary art, not apart from this. So I have to create something and I have to use body as an exhibition and interaction space. So I started thinking about that. Then I remember these postcards and I tried to find some manufacturers. Maybe because of I'm architect and I am also creating some, we also have a furniture and jewelry brand. I don't only work with the traditional ateliers, I also work with the industrial ateliers. So I try to find some ateliers that use, I ask if there is some kind of ateliers, if I can find, if they could make this lenticular printing, and it was very hard. And when I started to create them, I got a lot of emails and messages from all around the world. And they asked me that how I create it. And sometimes I may connect to the creators with this atelier. And it's very hard to work this atelier also for me because they are working for example, Bayern Munich. They are an advertising company. So it was very hard, but I use this technique because of my childhood memories.
Ok, gracias, Snem. Y ahora a lo mejor podemos conversar un poco con Dan, que nos cuente en qué anda dentro de esta pandemia, cómo ha podido él desarrollar su trabajo ahora en este momento tan especial. Dan, ¿quieres contarnos? Continuar tal vez con tu presentación.
Yes, of course. Look, on a personal level, there's nothing I can blame because at the beginning of the year, I just wanted to have a sabbatic year, a break.
Ah.
So things somehow happened without my will. And technically speaking, just at the beginning of the pandemic, I was in a conference in London at Collect Fair talking about jewelry, and I have such a lovely memories from that moment because it was the last time I traveled. So it was at the end of February. Otherwise, doing events wasn't possible. So until August, we had plans, and plans were changing, and we made other plans that in autumn, like October, November, or December, we're gonna have new events, and we're gonna start thinking to new opportunities. But towards September, I just realized that it wasn't possible to make any events this year. And here we are at the end of the year with no events in 2020.
Así es. Tu trabajo como fotógrafo tampoco lo has desarrollado este año, por ejemplo, tu trabajo como artista visual, más allá de todo el trabajo de gestión cultural y de industrias creativas. ¿Tu trabajo como artista no lo has podido desarrollar? ¿Estás realmente en un año sabático?
Well, maybe I was more close to the personal choice, and I was dedicating all this time to my family. I have a young family, and to my personal project. I was renovating a very old house in Transylvania, in well, like 120 years old, you know, and I was spending time in the countryside, and I was doing things that, looking back to the schedule that I had, wasn't possible. You know, I was spending time with my little girl and my family, and there's nothing to complain.
I think you engineered the virus, Dan. I think it was you.
El culpable de todo esto. Te escucharon las fuerzas del universo.
Oh,
Bueno,
yeah.
entonces no llegó en tan mal
We
momento.
can have our own little conspiracy here.
Gracias, Dan. Igual me quedan como preguntas para ti, como que a ti te gusta mucho, como dices, ser un creador de contexto, estar con la gente, que se hagan lazos entre los que hacen las cosas, los que las compran, y eso no lo has estado haciendo este año. Y un poco hay una reticencia a hacer las cosas virtuales, como hacer una feria virtual, porque para ti el contacto físico con la persona, mirarla a los ojos, mostrarle la pieza, que la toquen es importante. Pero entonces tú tomaste como la decisión de solamente posponer todo para cuando se pueda hacer. Y eso, como, me gustaría preguntarte cuáles son como esos planes, o si tuviste como una nueva forma de ver cómo crear, cómo construir este contexto, pero con esta pandemia, como no podemos juntarnos las personas, si a lo mejor el mundo virtual te resulta como una buena herramienta para seguir haciendo esto, o definitivamente tú sientes que eso no es la forma de interactuar. ¿Cómo te sientes con esto, con estas nuevas formas virtuales? ¿Cómo te sientes estando o conversando aquí a través de una pantalla? ¿Te parece muy antinatural? ¿O también eso es una forma de construir contextos?
Right. I think we can talk about different levels here. I think it's important to dissociate and not to generalize. Look, at the beginning of the year, we were working for Autor for the 19th edition, and we had the selection, and we had like a very beautiful selection. And when the pandemic started, and it was towards April, it was obvious that we cannot have we will not have the event in May. Uh, we had like very mixed feeling, and there was stress and anxiety and frustration involved as well, you know, because we had a lot of questions from all the people around the world. What we're gonna do? We're gonna postpone it? We're gonna keep doing it? We're gonna go digital? Whatever, you know. And my first impulse was indeed to think something towards digital. We wanted to have like a digital fair. Well, that was a very direct idea, but in fact, when we started to look closely to the idea and what does it mean to have an e-shop and what does it mean to have packages sent it from all over the world, we realized that it's more complicated than making the fair itself. So we didn't decide to go this year for a digital version of the fair, which I didn't really encourage it myself because, you know, as a context creator, as I like to call myself, it just made me. I really believe in these physical meetings, you know. I mean, Autor is a scene, and in this scene, the creator, the designer, the artist can meet the public. They can meet the visitors, which, you know, there is an implicit meeting. So I am for the old version of making a fair, but I don't exclude something like, let's say, a digital form of meeting, you know, of presenting jewelry and hopefully selling. But before doing that, as I told you, we thought of making a sort of online shop fair. I made the research, and in my research with the people that I talk with, the artists, they weren't very satisfied with the selling of what we call creative jewelry, art jewelry. They told me, you know, Dan, we sell jewelry online, but we sold the small pieces, like minimalistic pieces, very easy to wear pieces. Yeah, you can sell that online, but selling like demanding pieces, artistic concept, it's almost tabula rasa. It's almost not happening, you know? I mean, so we decided that Autor is not for commercial selling or very minimalistic pieces, you know, that you can follow. Yeah, we just need to have patience, and that is part of life.
Muy cierto, muy cierto. De repente perdemos un poco la conexión contigo, Dan. No sé si estarás tú con un problema de internet, pero te quedas un poquito pegado, pero
I
nada
can hear
terrible.
you.
Sí, ok. Creo que Kevin está como inquieto, como que Kevin quería decirnos algo, ¿no? Continuar con lo que él estaba contando, o tal vez comentarle algo a Dan. ¿Quieres?
Yes, I think it's wonderful that we don't give up on the physical, even though I think now it will radically change the degree to which we travel. It will still make, when we do come together with objects and makers, it so much more precious when that occurs. I think we've noticed that when we come together like this in meetings, that it is quite miraculous. But what was perhaps missing is the time when we come to a room where we talk to individuals, where we queue up for coffee and talk to the person next to us, where we digest things, which we don't have the chance to in this. But I wanted to just mention an experiment maybe that opens a different kind of path in this medium. We were concerned in the World Craft Council, particularly with people who depend on sales day to day of their works, particularly in countries like India, where they need tourists and travelers who will go to villages to buy work. And of course, there was nothing, and there's no savings, so they have no money. And so some of them decided to try and sell their story and find a way of doing that. So I'll just show you what we've been experimenting with. We started to have these, what we call story making sessions. And this is the idea that while we think of stories as being everywhere at any time, they're all in these books that we can pick up. Stories, in a sense, need a home. And often objects provide the home for that story because they're unique and they're it's the sort of thing you might wear and then somebody asks you about that piece. And so you get to tell the story of it. And so this has been an attempt to try and focus particularly on that. So we're having these story making sessions where we have a folk artist, and this was one from a village, an indigenous folk artist who makes these beautiful scenes. We have a professional storyteller who elaborates the wonderful magical stories around the work, and an expert who can then articulate more about the background of what is involved. Now, part of the key for this is that these are not recorded, so you have to be present in order to experience it, and it's a ticketed event, so the money that people pay then goes to the story maker, so it's a form of livelihood. So in that way, the object becomes the home of the story, and you need to be connected to be able to experience that. And they're designed also as stories that children will enjoy as well. So we have one coming up, the second one, with a bead jeweler in India this Sunday. And we will continue this. It seems relatively successful. Of course, this is something very difficult to scale up because of the complexity of organizing these events, but who knows where it might go. And I think it's very promising. And in a sense, it does remind me of the project that involved a lot of Chilean jewelers in Joya, where we looked at the amuleto, as a repository for stories. And people like Angela Curumendes and Carolina Onawa and so on created these objects that people then could bring into their life, and contains wishes and prayers and so on for good luck and for protection. So I think it sort of goes to this particular essence of jewelry, and I think we'll see where that goes. I think that could be an interesting new path to explore, and I think it reflects the way in which, for many of us, we survived lockdown by reading, by watching Netflix, we just needed stories as much as we needed food and water and air to be able to live. And I think it's really demonstrated that, and that these objects are, in a sense, the medium of those stories.
Gracias, Kevin. Muy interesante. Qué bonito que también menciones a algunos artistas chilenos que han trabajado en tus proyectos. Creo que esa muestra estuvo acá en Santiago, en el Centro Cultural Las Condes, o me equivoco, o era otra, pero tú pudiste mostrarla acá y yo estuve ahí
Correct.
y estuvo bueno eso. Y en realidad qué rico poder descubrir las historias y poder hablar también con los que hicieron esos trabajos y que nos cuenten por qué lo hicieron. No siempre tenemos esa oportunidad en las exposiciones y un poco es lo que hizo JoyaBrava ahora con este video que lanzamos el día de ayer, este video documental. Nos dio un espacio para contar por qué trabajamos en lo que trabajamos, por qué elegimos esos materiales, en qué estábamos pensando, qué cosas descubrimos en el camino. Y eso es algo para nosotros muy novedoso, no es lo que siempre ocurre normalmente en una exposición en que uno va a una inauguración y se toma unas copas y se pone divertida la cosa y después como que te olvidaste de los trabajos y vuelves otro día a mirar la obra incluso, eso ocurre mucho. Pero en cambio cuando puedes crear una instancia en que el artista puede hablar de su trabajo, por lo menos nosotros lo experimentamos con este video documental que lo vamos a estar compartiendo gratuito para todo el mundo por YouTube los próximos días, así que igual los dejo invitados a tener esa experiencia, que además es una experiencia inmersiva en 360 grados, entonces pueden jugar con el mouse y entretenerse como ingresando a los espacios. Después me gustaría conocer sus comentarios al respecto. Pero volviendo a nuestro panel, ya nos quedan menos minutos y me gustaría ahora ir cerrando el panel con la última ronda, tal vez volver a Snem a que ella también nos haga como un cierre, una conclusión a lo que hemos estado conversando, a estos tiempos raros, difíciles, que también nos enseñan cosas. Entonces que nos haga como, que Snem, si nos puedes como contar algo que haya quedado ahí que nos querías decir, o algo más sobre tu trabajo, o alguna conclusión, te cedo la palabra.
I know that it's very sad to be a kind of pandemic like that, but it's not a solution to feel only sad. We have to find some ways to struggle to fight with pandemic, and I think this is about to create. When I was working at university, when I was working with the students, during pandemic, I start to read again and again the science fiction's classics and start to watch again and dystopian films and movies. And I think in this term, it's very important because it's very important the prediction of the future. And I also ask myself that how kind of a future that I predict and how kind of levels that I predict, because and how the body is incorporated into this new feature. These are very important for me, and I start to work on these kind of things. And I think it's really hard times, but the most important thing is not to lose the hope and fight against this pandemic and this process with your production process, with the things that you create.
Entonces, esperanza para el mundo, eso es lo que no tenemos que nunca perder, ¿no? Y también las ganas de seguir creando, por lo menos en mi caso, como que eso nunca se acabe. Cuando ya no nos den ganas de crear nada, ahí hay que preocuparse, creo yo.
I'm sorry.
¿No lo tradujeron bien? No, digo que la esperanza, que nunca se pierda y que sigamos con ganas de crear, que eso nunca se acabe. ¿Quieres, Dan, agregar algo más a esta conversación o pasamos a algunas preguntas que nos han escrito algunas personas? Algunas personas nos han preguntado algunas cosas.
Oh, let's take the questions.
Ya. A ver. Vania pregunta, ¿será de importancia el relato que hay detrás de la joyería? ¿Será que ahora, después de la pandemia, va a cobrar una nueva importancia? Porque generalmente las exposiciones son muy pulcras y lo relevante siempre es la pieza. Nunca se muestra el relato y menos el proceso. ¿Creen ustedes que esto va a ser algo relevante en el futuro? No sé si tú mismo, Dan, quieres responder eso.
I'm sorry, it was interrupting and I didn't hear the questions very well. So can you briefly just put it
Sí.
very shortly, directly to me?
Generalmente las joyerías son muy pulcras, las exposiciones, donde lo relevante es la obra. ¿Y tú crees que después de este proceso pandémico ahora va a cobrar más importancia el relato que hay detrás de la pieza y el proceso para llegar a ella?
I think that this, if I understood well the question, is related about the story behind the jewelry, right? So I think it was important before. I think it was essential, the story behind the piece, you know, the story behind the jewelry. And I think it will be further on important, because if we talk about creative jewelry, we tell stories with it. We tell stories all the time with the jewelry. I mean, if the jewelry is meant to have a concept, we talk about creative jewelry and not really about historic jewelry. And the concept behind the piece is really important.
Pero ¿tú crees que, por ejemplo, los joyeros deberían empezar a escribir y poner tal vez un texto al lado de su obra? ¿O estamos hablando más bien como que la obra hable por sí misma y que el mismo autor pueda tener una conversación con la persona que está observando? ¿Cómo se transmite esa historia? ¿La transmite la obra? ¿La transmite un texto que nadie lo lee? ¿O la transmite el artista cuando se enfrenta al público? ¿Cuál será la mejor forma? Te tengo muy complicado.
Or not. In my opinion, because I cannot generalize, you know, for me, a piece of jewelry involves emotions, you know, and when this piece of jewelry is vivid and it's expressing vibration and emotions, you really get hooked to it, you get attached to it instantly, you know, because something resonates in you, you know, it's hook you because there is something talking to you, get in the dialogue with the pieces. So it could be also the receptor, I mean the person who looks to the jewelry, that it's on the same level with the creator, so there is a dialogue or not. So if you put a text close to it, next to it, could be helpful and sometimes is necessary, but in my opinion, shouldn't be that necessary. I mean, I think a piece should talk by itself.
Ok.
Like the jewelry that Snem is doing.
Claro, claro. Aunque igual no me
Really
perdería,
powerful.
sí, son muy poderosas y llegan como directo a nosotros. Sin embargo, no me molestaría tener una buena conversación con Snem cuando la vaya a ver a Turquía y me muestre sus trabajos. Kevin, a lo mejor tú quieres responder también a esta misma pregunta.
I can provide an alternative opinion to Dan. which I think he is too modest, because he is a context maker, and text is one context, fair is another context, that it is part of our psychology in the way we see the world, that we always combine the background and the foreground. This is the nature of Gestalt. And the text is the background. It helps us look at the object. And sometimes we can provide one, or in the case of Snem, for instance, the politics of Istanbul and Turkey is partly the background to her work. It's the frame. It helps us focus on it. And I think what I found, particularly this year, but it's been developing, is the importance of Instagram as the background to a lot of jewelry practice, which has replaced the gallery this year because we have no exhibitions. So I think that Instagram is a way in which we can understand the context of the work and the life of the maker. We can see images of their garden and what they're doing during the day, which helps us understand the journey of the object, perhaps differently to what is normally in the white cube of the gallery. So if you just allow me one particular second, because I do want to mention the issue of Garland. And Garland, the line of Garland is the stories behind what we make. And so this issue from South America, which of course has got so many familiar faces, including yours,
Sí,
Liliana,
muchos
tells the stories of so much richness of what artists in Chile have to offer, and particularly including those relate to deep times, such as the cosmovision of the Mapuche, the deep time of the Inca peoples, and the way this is connected through jewelry and also a weaving, which is very strong in South America as well. So I think this is enriching what we're doing through media like Instagram and social media. But I think, you know, it's always good to come back to the gallery, which is like our temple. You know, it's where we really elevate to the things that are sacred to us in terms of art. So hopefully we'll come back to that temple again next year, but knowing that there is a life beyond as well.
Así es. Gracias, Kevin. Nos quedan pocos minutos y hay otra pregunta del público que alguien hace y dice, ¿cuáles son los canales de venta para la joyería de arte ahora que estamos en pandemia y que no podemos estar físicamente en una feria? ¿Cuáles serían esos canales de venta, según ustedes? ¿Qué se puede hacer ahora que no podemos físicamente estar juntos? Esa es una pregunta. No sé si alguno de ustedes quiere responderlo. ¿Alguno de ustedes estará comercializando piezas de otra forma que no sea a través de ferias ni exposiciones? Snem, a lo mejor tú puedes responder esa pregunta del público.
Yeah, it was for me very hard to sell my jewelries in Turkey too. So I create a furniture brand for Turkey, but this is not the answer. And there are some digital markets around the world, digital markets of the museums, and the wholesalers are the participants of these digital markets. And you can apply them and you can participate them. And when you compare the price with the physical fairs, they are very cheap. And the people that you sell your jewelries are the wholesalers. For example, wholesalers of MoMA or San Francisco MoMA or Getty Museum or other museums. I'm talking for United States. And if you want to sell your jewelries, you can enter these digital markets. And I don't know other channels. That's why I create a furniture brand for the moment.
Maybe I can say something.
Yes.
I think it's different for everyone because there are different type of jewelry, different type of artists. What we should not miss for sure is that the possibilities are endless right now. You know, Instagram this year just developed this boutique part to sell and to connect with the e-shops. So you can use digital platforms almost for free. I mean, you don't have to pay to have an account or Instagram or some other platforms, you know. And I think Instagram is the best way to try to promote and sell jewelry, in my opinion. There are some others, but as I noticed, Instagram is kind of the best one. And also, I think it's important to dissociate, to be realistic that maybe if we create a type of creative jewelry, could be for a limited public, for some limited people around you. So maybe if you really want to sell, maybe you have to find a more accessible or let's say commercial line that can sell. You know, commercial is not something bad. You just have to be realistic, because if you don't sell, you're gonna stop and you're gonna start doing something else. So otherwise you have some other possibilities to earn money, or some other projects, or some other business, or maybe you have a rich family, which is good also. Or otherwise you just have to look continuously for promotion and opportunities to sell and to collaborate. Just don't give up. The
Muy buen
world of internet
mensaje.
is big.
El mundo todavía no se acaba y no nos demos por vencidos. Ese es un buen mensaje como para finalizar, y conectémonos con nuestra audiencia. Tenemos muchas herramientas virtuales que nos pueden ayudar a eso, y si podemos también asociarnos, como pertenecer a un grupo como lo hacemos nosotros aquí en JoyaBrava, eso también ayuda bastante, creo yo. Así que les agradezco a mis hermosos invitados por habernos acompañado. Ya estamos terminando, y que tengan una buena noche, un buen día para Kevin, y sigamos conectados. Y bueno, cuídense mucho, hay que seguir cuidándose. Me despido. Adiós.
Muchas
Chao.
gracias.
Thank you very much for your invitation,
Chao.
for this beautiful dialogue. Thank you. Bye bye.
No,
De
gracias.
nada, adiós. Chao.
Gracias. Take care.
Muchas gracias por participar a todos. Vamos a terminar esta charla y obviamente